Hello and welcome to the Debating Toastcast, a podcast about all things debating, from the Debate Toastmasters Club, 104 London Debaters.
Hello, I'm William, one of the debate coaches at 104 London Debaters, and in this episode, I want to pose the question, what is the use of debating? Now, with me to discuss this, and hopefully some other bits and bobs as well, I am very glad to say I have a fellow member of 104 London Debaters and also a fellow debate coach, namely David Sexton. Hello, David.
Hi, William. Great to be here. Looking forward to some interesting debate discussion.
Yes, absolutely. Now, at the time of recording this, for those who are listening, at some other point in time, David is currently also serving his term, as it were. Not at His Majesty's service, I'm glad to say, but as president of our debating club. Now, last year I did the presiding. This year David is swinging the gavel, and from July, later this year, 2024, someone else will have to pick up, because that's how Toastmasters work. You see, 104 London Debaters is part of Toastmasters, and so we sort of follow their general setup and rules, but more on that a little bit later. I want to first introduce David properly, or rather, I'll have him introduce himself, I think. How about that, David? You're up for that?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Great.
So,
well, hang on, because I need to ask you the question that we always ask all our guests. Where are you from? I mean, where are you really from?
Where am I from? I'm from Maidenhead, which is a small town next to Windsor to the west of London. That's where I grew up, just outside London. And then I went and studied in various different places. I decided I didn't want to study anywhere near home at all. I was like, leaving Maidenhead is the best sign of success, and I don't want to end up back in Maidenhead, even though it's actually quite fine. But I did my degree up in York and then studying genetics. And then I went and did a PhD up at Edinburgh before moving south and working in biotech in Southampton for a bit. And then finally, I've ended up in Hayward Heath, which is where my house is, bought a house there. And actually, it's quite a similar place to Maidenhead, really. It's one of those suburban towns just outside of London where people commute into London, which is what I do. So even though I was like, I'll never move anywhere like Maidenhead, I actually ended up somewhere fairly similar, and there's a reason people live places like that.
So I want to now just come back quickly to what Toastmasters is. So Toastmasters International is an organization of public speaking clubs. It's either organized at your place of work or in the community, and you can go there, take part, become a member, attend, whether once a month, twice a month, or however often the club meets, and practice regularly public speaking, standing up in front of a crowd and speaking both prepared and unprepared speeches. Now, it was funded by a chap called Ralph Smedley, actually 100 years ago this year, in California, in the US of A. And it now boasts approximately 270,000 members across the world, in 14,200 clubs at the latest count, apparently, and 148 countries. So there are the stats for you. Now, I understand, David, you got hooked shortly after graduating from university. So where was that?
So when I was finishing up my PhD, I was starting to look for jobs, and outside of the sciences, because I had a PhD in developmental biology, I was doing lots of moving colourless liquids from different places to heat them up and cool them down and inject it into zebrafish embryos to see what happened to their eyes. And I loved science, but I didn't like doing it very much. So I was looking for something slightly different. And one of the jobs which caught my eye was something called medical scientific liaison, which is more of an informational job, educating doctors. And I thought public speaking would be great. I should improve my public speaking to do this. And I joined a Toastmasters club in Guildford, because my wife had a job in Guildford at the time. I never ended up actually getting a medical scientific liaison job. I really caught the bug about Toastmasters. That's a good 8 years ago, something like that now, and a few clubs back as well. And it did help me get a job, though. I eventually moved into more of a sales kind of role in biotech, and it definitely has helped me, in job interviews, in structuring answers, in my public speaking. My public speaking has definitely got better over time. One of the things I like doing is there's contests which the clubs run, and you can kind of benchmark your progress. When I started, I was, I would be lucky to get through to area contest, and in the end, I was the first person from my club in Southampton to get through to district level and qualify in that, which was quite big for my club and definitely showed improvement and can kind of reliably get to division level. So I could see my public speaking was getting better. I got commentating at work, and I enjoyed that. And I've been doing it for a while. So then I started to look for something a bit new. At one of the contests, actually, I saw I think it was Anka, who was the VPE at the time, was doing some kind of debate promotion at one of the contests, and that made me think it's something I should try, because I need to get a new club because I've moved to Hayward Heath. So that kind of was my Toastmasters journey. I've always been on the committee fairly. I think I was picked to be on the some of the secretary roles, and then I've kind of moved my way around all the roles. I think the only role I haven't done is vice president membership now. I've done all the other roles now.
You're the conscientious sort of guy who always likes to muck in.
I kind of feel that you benefit from everyone else doing the roles. So at some point, especially if you're there for the long haul, which I am, you should do them at least once to pay back what other people have done for you. So
yeah, exactly. It is a corporate effort. Everybody needs to take part and run the club. It's not run by someone else. And I think that's coming back to the point about presidency. So in many, because I've been a member of various other sort of clubs and societies as well, and very often you end up with sort of a really small core of people who tend to get reappointed to the same roles again and again, and you have the same chairman for several years running because he's sort of willing to do it, or she's willing to do it, and then nobody else gets a chance. But also the others don't have to make the choice. They're not confronted with the necessity to say, all right, then I'll take it on, because they don't have to. So it's so easy to say, I'll support you, mate. But at Toastmasters, we don't have that option, because you're supposed to be president only one period, and then you have to step down and someone else has to take over. I know in some cases people have sort of come back after a few periods because they've had to, step in the breach or something of that type. But generally, that's the idea, isn't it? That you do it once and then someone else. Do you see the advantages of that, David, or do you think it's a problem?
Yeah, I think one of the key things to say about Toastmasters is you mentioned the public speaking aspect, which is what drew me in, and it's the most obvious thing that you're practicing public speaking. Yeah. The actual ethos of Toastmasters, their motto is where leaders are made. So there's a whole leadership strand of this, and they want to give people a chance to develop and try different roles and actually learn how to do them. And I definitely think there's something to that. It gives people a chance to develop. I know people who've made career changes based on their Toastmaster roles, who got, say, marketing jobs because they got their marketing experience from the PR role, for example, where you can be let loose to do some of the things which maybe a company would let you do. And the treasury role is a good role if you're going to get into the finance side of things. If you're going to start a business, that kind of thing, you're going to have to do that kind of thing. So I think it's a really nice thing about Toastmasters. It's volunteer run, and it's really encouraged that people do. Not everyone does. I mean, there are people who are just happy to turn up, but you're really encouraged to. And there's always this ethos of churn through the committee, where you're looking for the new members who are keen to take on some of the roles and have some of the older members, so that they know what they're doing while you hand over and that kind of thing, and have that pipeline of people going through in a healthy club.
So we talked about Toastmasters, what it is, public speaking and leadership practice, basically. But of course, 104 London Debaters, clue is in the name, we're a debating Toastmasters club. And as far as I know, we were the first and still the only debating Toastmasters in the United Kingdom. There are a few around the world, but we're the only one on these isles. So what does that actually mean then, David? What's different with our format from a normal meeting? Could you quickly sketch out?
I'd say the key difference is because 104 is more focused on actually organising debates and improving debating skills. It has to do a lot of things outside of Toastmasters organisation in terms of training, because at the moment there is no debating pathway. There's something like 10 pathways, which has been rationalised down, I think, I can't remember, actually 6 pathways, something like that, of different types of public speaking skills and development. but there's no debating pathway. So we have to do a lot of the stuff ourselves. We have our own format, which has been adapted so that you can follow the educational materials in Toastmasters. There'll be things like focus on your vocal variety or your gestures, things like that. And you can do it in the club. We've timed the different sections that you can put a project in there and a prepared speech. But actually, the main format is a set of impromptu speaking, which a normal Toastmasters club would do, but it'll just be debate focused, where one person will take one side and one person will take the other side in table topics, whereas a normal club would just do whatever type of impromptu speaking. And then there'll be an actual prepared debate, which will be a team effort, which is very different from Toastmasters normal clubs. Normally it'll be a single person. They might talk to a mentor, but they'll be their own speech.
I wanted to actually focus in on that a little bit, because I remember when I started in Toastmasters, and I got involved through my work. I worked for a company that was owned by McGraw-Hill. And so McGraw-Hill, obviously being American, they had Toastmasters very much as an integral part, actually, of how they encourage their employees to train in terms of presentation, public speaking, and leadership. But obviously you prepare for your speeches all on your own. You look at whatever is the requirement for the exercise, and then you may get some help or support from a mentor if you have one, or some other experienced member. But that's about it. You get some input, you get some feedback. But then you get up and you deliver it, and it's all your own effort. Whereas in a debate, you're part of a team, right? So there's two teams. There's the proposition and the opposition, and then you have to work with the other members of your team to prepare sort of a case. So your speech isn't only your speech; it's also the other people's speech. So that sort of teamwork and preparation, I think, is quite a key difference, wouldn't you say?
It's a key difference, and it's not just your own team. You're also in the normal Toastmasters will have votes on who the best speaker was. So there's some competitive element in there, but there's nothing you can do about how that what the other person does on the night. It's only making your speech as good as possible. Whereas a debate is a give and take from both sides, and you can try and do things to anticipate what the other side will do and shape how the debate goes based on what you say and what you bring up. So there's a bit more complexity there in how it pulls together. Usually we would start preparing a week, or more like 2 ideally, before the debate, and have 3 or so meetings between the teams so people can actually look at what they're going to say. Hopefully there'll either be an experienced member or a coach who's actually going to give you some input about the quality of your arguments, and maybe point things out you can improve on, and look at the speech as well. So there's a coaching element in there itself, which is separate from a mentor. The club will also assign a mentor who is more assigned to you through the whole journey of the club, whereas a coach is just for that specific debate, for that specific debate team. So we have that focus on improving debates on that side of things. We also do have workshops as well. We organize periodically, and 3 or 4 throughout the year, just looking at debate skills and improving in that way, which we have to do because there's no debate focus in Toastmasters. Yeah. I do enjoy the team effort. I really enjoy the give and take of debates. I did do 1 or 2 debates in Southampton. They've done a few debates there, so you can do them in normal Toastmasters clubs, but they weren't as focused and structured as 104, which specializes in it.
So I mentioned earlier that this is now your year currently of being the president. About half of it, well, exactly half of it, is behind us. So we now have the final half in front of us. And do you have any thoughts as to what your priorities are for these next 6 months, and what the club will be focusing on and doing in the next few months?
I have thoughts. I mean, all of them have been ratified by the club, but there are directions I want to take the club in. Since COVID, we've been operating on a kind of dual structure where we have online meetings and in-person meetings, and it's kind of led to a kind of split stream of the club. So I'd be keen to actually split the club and start the process of moving from having one unified online and in-person club to an in-person club and an online club, just because that's the way people are pulling anyway. There are people who can only attend online because we've got a member in India, we've got a member in Wales, we've got a member in South Shields. They're never going to make it to in-person meetings, and they have a lot of dedication to the club as well. But but then there are members who just won't go online, and it's just leading to it's kind of two ships passing the night. So that's what I really want to move to, is increasing the number of in-person meetings we're having at our venue, and then trying to add on online meetings on top of that, with a view to growing that enough to split that off. I'm really keen to do some challenging debates and actually have some versus debates with other clubs, because I think that gets us more active as debaters and engage with that. I'll be looking at recruiting next year's committee. So I'm starting to look at the members and seeing who's going to take different roles and get volunteers for that and get that in place in good time for the tail end of the year. And otherwise, we're just going to do a load of debates. We've planned out a calendar. We've got various different types of debates. Most of them will be our bread and butter debates, which are the 3v3 team debates. There are a few other formats as well we do follow. And I've been trying to add more variety to our debate topics by actually specifying that we're going to pick certain types of topics. So say a political debate or a values debate, where we're looking at something a bit more hypothetical, like what's more important, justice or fairness or something like that, which is more abstract. Or say a historical debate about a historical issue, or a scientific debate like, is evolution true, or something like that, which has a factual answer rather than a policy debate. So should we do things? Because I found our club tends to be steered towards the political side of things, because the kind of people in debates society tend to be more political. Yes. And if you just don't intervene, we'll just end up doing a lot of political debates, and maybe that's not necessarily the best outcome in terms of variety.
No, that's true. I mean, sometimes it can be good to do others. I mean, I remember we had a debate about what Napoleon's legacy, whether that was good or bad. We had one about whether the food was better in London or in Paris, things like that. And that can be quite interesting. And of course, humorous debates as well give a bit of variety to how we approach a topic, that we can approach it in a sort of more lighthearted and cheeky way. So that's quite interesting. And all of that sounds really interesting, and I'm looking forward to the next 6 months. But it brings me also on to the sort of question that I posed at the start of this podcast episode, which was, what is the purpose of debating? I mean, what's the point of it? We're not going to change government policy. So why do we bother doing this, David? What's the point?
What's the point? Well, I think the point is different for every member, and that's any kind of organization is going to have multiple different points. And the number one point for me, as we're a volunteer-run club, is fun, that people enjoy it. The kind of people in debate club are people who generally enjoy having arguments and enjoy having that kind of structured debate. They tend to be more political, as I said, but it's just fun. It's fun learning, being part of the team, winning, and actually having that cut and throat of a debate. If you're that kind of person, I've always been that kind of person who enjoys a good argument. It's like a game, which is not got external rules. It has the intrinsic rule of you're just trying to persuade the other person. So I enjoy it. I mean, other things which I get out of it personally, I think it's a very good way of getting out of the filter bubble. I mean, just the fact the debate club, they tend to be people politically motivated, but you have people who are, ranging from communists to, free markets, libertarian type people. So you have the full gamut of people there, which is a really good thing in our modern society. I think, to just be engaged with people across the whole spectrum, and you get your own beliefs challenged. And I think it's the best way of challenging your beliefs is debate. So what I found, and I think it's true of everyone, is most of our opinions about most things aren't very well considered because we don't have the time. So when you're actually debating, and you're debating for a side you don't believe in, often you'll find your opinion changes. And that's because naturally you have the tendency to just agree with whatever you're arguing. You just look to try and confirm what you're trying to argue.
I think it
doesn't always, and that's when you.
And I find that even if you don't change your mind, your view has been nuanced a bit, right? Like, because you've done research, and suddenly you find that, those people who think something else than me, they're not insane. They do have a point. I don't still may not fully agree with it, but I can more readily understand it, or I can be more sympathetic towards it. Or do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I definitely know what you mean, and I think I've definitely seen it happen with Yeah, with everyone, I think maybe you understand more the other side. So even if you don't change your mind, you have a better understanding of the opposition side,
Yeah.
and that's you're only going to do that in that kind of environment where I saw a talk where someone was like, "Oh, you should just read the other side," kind of thing. It's like, yeah, but you just read the other side and you try and put yourself in the other position, you're not going to do it. But if you feel like I have to compete and try and win with this argument,
Yes.
you're going to try as hard as you can from the competitive side of things, even if you don't believe it. So I do think it's the best way of doing that,
Yeah.
open to an average person. Or I can think of where you are trying to argue something and it's explicitly said, at the start of the meetings, we follow the Chatham House rules, and that people aren't necessarily, and often aren't, arguing for what they believe in. In fact, I would say once you're an established member, you should try and debate for sides
Yeah.
you don't believe in. Because it's a good practice in debating, and it's a good practice in life. So that's one side. I think that helps you in hygiene. There's the other side of just actually researching these topics makes you more better informed. I find it comes up quite a lot. You do a debate on pensions, also raising the pension age, and you're like, actually, it's quite an important issue which I've never really thought about that much, and I'm quite a bit more informed about it having done that crash course kind of thing and stuff.
No, that's absolutely. Yeah, I find that definitely. I've learned a lot through doing the preparations. Suddenly you read a few articles and try and sort of dig into a topic a little bit more, and suddenly, okay, yeah, I actually know something now that I didn't know before I started, and so yeah, I think you do become more knowledgeable as well.
I think for me, debates are actually much better for ourselves and people to do as an intellectual practice, rather than to watch and make up your opinion based on a debate you're watching from other people. Because it's a short amount of time, and actually, you're probably not going to change your beliefs based on just one debate. You probably shouldn't, because someone might just be a really good debater. I've watched, some of the abortion debates, for example, and they always have a problem is that the pro-life people are really into the debating and the rhetoric, and I see the stuff they do, and I'm like, they're good debaters, but the other person they're actually debating isn't a debater. They're usually like a scientist or a feminist or something like that, and they're coming on like, I want an honest like exchange of opinions. I'm going to be open to your side, and I'm trying to just express my side. But where the pro-life side is like, I want to win this debate, and I'm just going to do whatever I can to do it, because I think I'm in a crusade. And it just, and I could see people like, oh, that person was a much better debater, and usually they are, because they're looking at from a debate side of things, but it's not necessarily the best way of finding what's true and what's the active should be. So I have seen stuff like that as well. So I wouldn't recommend people decide what they believe based on debates personally. I think, well, watching it, from doing it, it's completely opposite. I think it's the best way of deciding what you believe is doing it.
I think that's I think that's a very interesting point. I think the one thing you can perhaps learn to get better at by being by being an audience member is critical thinking, though. I mean, obviously as a participant as well, but as an audience member, you have to do exactly what you now said. You have to listen and then sift through, what is just the way he says it, the rhetoric, and what is the substance, what is the actual content of the argument. And that's a process that you do have to train that, and I guess most people don't necessarily do that, and so they are prone to just be bamboozled perhaps sometimes by rhetoric. But just as a final point before we round off our conversation, David, at our meetings, then, how do you decide how to vote? Because if you can't fully grasp a topic necessarily in the sort of hour or so that the debate is ongoing, how do you decide how to vote?
So I'll say we haven't said how we judge winners. So in our club, it's just done by vote, where you start with a vote on what people believe, what the audience believe before the debate, and then you see what they believe after the debate. Personally,
so we take two.
I judge that based
one before the debate starts.
Yeah,
and then so we ask, okay, where are people on this topic before you've heard anything? Okay, and then we hear the debate, and then what happens then after the debate?
Then we have a second vote, which is where people are after the debate. we do ask them to vote based on who they think was the best argument on the night, not on what their original belief was, rather than necessarily who has been persuaded. It's a high bar to say someone's going to change the whole beliefs. And as I said, I don't think people should change their beliefs based on a single debate, watching one. And I can definitely tell what's been a better debate argument compared to what necessarily was true. I've watched debates where I've been like, I believe one side definitely, but I could definitely see that the other side made a better case, and that they made a more logical case. They answered more of the opposition's points and with stronger points, and they had more of a thread and that kind of thing. And they actually just presented it better, more engaged, more energetic, more emotion. And I could just tell that they made a better case. Yeah. So I would vote for them, even if I, haven't been persuaded, or I know stuff outside of the debate which wasn't mentioned, which kind of shoots a hole in their argument. But then I curse myself usually, because I'm like, damn it, I wish I'd been on the debate team so I could have said this. But
yes, I've had a few times I've thought that. But yeah, okay. So then after the debate, we look at, okay, who were the most convincing of the two teams on the night? Basically, that's what we try and keep in mind. Yeah. And
we also have a little section which is the usually it's the chance for the audience to just interject, because there are a lot of people like me and William who just, I want to say something for this debate because they've missed something. Yes. That shouldn't really be included in where you vote, because they're not really on the teams. But it allows the final speaker to address that point from the audience and that kind of thing. I must say these things. That's just how it's tend to be.
Yes, that's what we call the floor contributions, isn't it? And they can be very good. I mean, sometimes they come up with a point that knocks everything sideways, and then as like you say, the final speaker, the summary speaker, will have to either address that or risk the audience being actually swayed by something they heard on the floor contributions. And that's you can't really, you can't ban people from being swayed by something they hear, even if it's not from the debaters.
I don't think it happens very much anyway. I think it's very rare for a floor contribution to sway the whole debate. Usually I'm not surprised which way the debates, the final vote goes. Even if it's not the absolute winner, I usually look at the swing, is what I look at, where it's gone to, if it's gone in one direction or another direction in terms of belief, even if that hasn't crossed that 50% threshold. Someone started and it was like they had only their team was voting for the motion, and then they've moved to 40% of the audience is voting. I'm like, they've done pretty well. So
that's true. That's true. Yes. Yes. No, that's a good point. So we also try and take that into consideration, that how many people did you move from one side to the other? Because I think that's certainly a hallmark of a good deliverance. So I'm going to attempt a quick summary of our discussion here, and David, you can obviously interrupt and come up with another opinion if you disagree with me, because we are a debating club after all. But I would say that debating at 104 London Debaters is meaningful, because you get to practice and you get better at public speaking. Obviously, you get better at leadership. You get access to Toastmasters resources. And in addition, you get all the debating benefits of learning how to build a good argument, learning how to assess them in light of logic and reason. You get to learn rhetoric, how to be convincing. You get workshops. We have social events. You meet lots of interesting, wonderful people, and not just the two of us. There are other people available. So hey, what's not to like? Debating is great, and debating at 104 London Debaters is particularly great. Have you got any opposition to that?
I would say that the one big bit you missed out is that it's fun. And that's basically all I want to say. That's a really important component. The actual debating is fun, and you're going to have a good time with a load of like-minded people as well. So that's my most important thing. Keep it fun, because we're doing this in our spare time. So otherwise people won't keep coming if they're not enjoying themselves.
Absolutely, totally. No, that point is accepted. I totally see that point. And I think on that note of agreement, I will say thank you, David, and see you in the next debate.
See you in the next debate.
You've been listening to the Debating Toastcast. Feel free to leave a comment, critical or encouraging. We welcome both. And if you'd like more information about joining the club or coming first as a guest, please have a look at our website, 104londondebaters.club, or send us an email on info@104londondebaters.club. That's info@104londondebaters.club. Thank you for listening.